And speaking of travel, my colleague Roee Ruttenberg spoke with travel expert Jennifer Weatherhead Harrington. She described a new trend for 2020, something called micro-travel.
So those are very short little vacations, which is going to be a huge trend, especially for millennials in the new year. They're taking about 3 to 4 days rather than a long 1 or 2 week vacation. So they're trying to cram as much as they can into that short amount of time. And a lot of tour companies are now offering 3 to 4 day trips instead of the lengthy ones. So it's a really neat, interesting travel trend, especially for people looking to maximize their vacation time.
Are millennials factoring into this changing travel trend for 2020?
They are, because millennials are right at that peak right now where they are the ones traveling. They fully entered the travel market. So it's kind of making the travel scene change a little bit more, and everything's kind of favoring them slightly more than it has in the past. If you look at something like river cruising, it used to be something that just your grandparents would do, something you would do when you were retired. It costs a lot of money, but a lot of different river cruise companies now are offering millennial-focused trips. So activities and excursions have a lot more physical activity within them. You're visiting bars and clubs and that kind of thing. Some ships are just for millennials. They don't allow anyone over certain age groups. So you're seeing a shift in that sense in terms of these older travel companies are kind of starting to make adjustments to factor in the millennial travel.
2019 was a rough year economically in many parts of the world. Did travel in 2019 reflect that? And if so, do you expect travel in 2020 to reflect whatever's happening in the economy next year?
Yeah, it definitely does, because I think people are looking to spend their money wisely, and they're looking for cost-effective ways. So I think that's also one reason why shorter vacations are becoming more popular. You're not spending quite as much money, but definitely destinations and countries that can stretch the dollar a little bit more, particularly in Europe. If you're looking at a place like Portugal, for instance, they actually have a really great rate when it comes to the currency for most North Americans, and also for Chinese travelers as well. So it's really a big trend to see people trying to go to places that aren't going to be quite as expensive. And I would say that people are also trying to visit destinations that are smaller, in the sense of they might be going to Italy, but they're not going to visit Rome and Venice necessarily. They'll go to a smaller city where hotel costs and Airbnb costs are not quite as high.
And we saw some pushback in 2019 from cities like Paris, which really reached saturation in tourism. Do you expect to see more of that in 2020?
Definitely, and I think travelers are definitely becoming more and more aware of where they're going and the impact that they're having. You hear a lot of people talking about sustainable travel in 2020 as well, but part of that is, like I mentioned, going to those smaller destinations that aren't seeing the influx of tourists just yet. So let's just say you are in Italy. Instead of going to Florence and Venice, you might go to Bologna or the island of Sardinia, places that don't have quite as many tourists going, but are still just as beautiful and remarkable. And I think that's a shift, in, especially with millennials in the traveling sphere, because they really want to make sure that they're not leaving a negative impact when they are traveling.
A lot of destinations around the world have been competing for the Chinese tourists. That's a big market, nothing new there. What can we expect in 2020? Which destinations are going to win? And are Chinese looking specifically for destinations, or are they looking more for experiences?
So I would say that Chinese travelers definitely looking for that experiential type of travel these days. They're not just looking to hit up a spot to, say, go shopping or just spend a whole lot of money. They want something that they can feel socially connected to, something that they can share and talk about and be more involved in the community. So we are still seeing places like Europe. It was a huge destination in 2019, and that will continue. Definitely Germany, France, Italy, Switzerland as well. There are also a lot of really great airlines that are offering stopover programs in those different destinations. So that gives tourists a chance to see one destination that they may not have thought about seeing as they head on to a different destination as well. But definitely for the Chinese market, I think they're looking to do more of that experiential side of things and have sort of something that's a bit more authentic.
And who's coming to China?
Again, definitely the Europeans. You'll see a lot of them coming. A lot of that has to do with the ease of being able to travel to China quite frequently. So you'll be seeing a lot more of those, and also people coming from Thailand and Japan and Australia.
Jennifer Weatherhead Harrington, thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much.